At first, they held the illusion of unity. Mark Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus, three men dividing a world. Antony ruled the war-hardened East, Octavian the politically vital West. Lepidus was left with Africa, a title more than a throne. But three rulers were always too many. Lepidus had once stood at Caesar's side, loyal, useful, forgotten. But when he reached for more, when he tried to claim Sicily, Octavian struck. His soldiers abandoned him. His dreams turned to ash. Octavian spared his life, but stripped him of all power. Exiled, reduced to nothing. The Second Triumvirate was no more. Now, only two remained. Antony and Octavian, bound by Caesar's shadow, driven by ambition, destined to destroy each other. Antony was a soldier, decisive, daring, forged in war. Octavian was something else entirely. A tactician, a master of optics, of alliances, of control. Their alliance had been born of need, but power truly could not be shared. For a time, they pretended. Antony married Octavia, Octavian's sister, a gesture of peace. But peace was a lie. Antony saw Octavian as a boy who wore Caesar's name like armor. Octavian saw Antony as reckless, foreign, corrupted by the East. Each man watched the other and waited. Antony turned to the East, to power, to Cleopatra. Octavian turned to Rome, to the Senate, to the people. Their letters grew cold, their agreements brittle. The mask of unity fell away. Rome had seen one civil war. Now, another was coming, and only one man would walk away as master. In the East, another force was pulling Antony away from Rome, one as seductive as it was dangerous: Cleopatra. To the Romans, she was a foreign queen. To Antony, she was everything Rome had denied him: power, loyalty, a kingdom that bent only to him. Their alliance was sealed in Tarsus. She came not as a monarch, but as a goddess. A golden barge on the Cydnus River, sails perfumed, draped in silks as Aphrodite herself. Incense filled the air, music echoed over the water, and Antony, lover of spectacle, was bewitched. But their union was not mere passion. It was strategy. It was empire. Antony needed Egypt's wealth. Cleopatra needed Rome's recognition. Together they imagined a new world, one that would rise from the East. In Rome, wars were not always fought with legions. Some battles were waged in the shadows, won not by swords but by whispers. And no one understood this better than Octavian. As Antony drifted further into Cleopatra's world, Octavian saw an opportunity. His enemy was no longer just a rival. He was a man who could be reshaped in the eyes of Rome. And so, with precision and patience, Octavian set in motion one of the most ruthless propaganda campaigns in history. It started with a whisper, a carefully placed rumor. Antony was no longer a Roman. They said he had abandoned his homeland, seduced by the luxuries of the East, bewitched by an Egyptian queen. They said he had forsaken the proud garments of a Roman general, choosing instead the silken robes of a foreign ruler. That he no longer marched with his legions, but instead reclined in Cleopatra's palace, feasting while Rome suffered. These were not accusations. These were weapons, designed to strike at Antony's very identity. And Rome was listening. Then came the final outrage, the donations of Alexandria. Before a lavish, adoring crowd, Antony made his declaration. He granted vast Roman lands to Cleopatra and their children. And at the heart of it all, a name that shook the very foundation of Rome itself: Caesarion, the son of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra, declared king of kings, the true heir of Rome. To the Senate, this was more than arrogance. This was treason. Octavian moved quickly. He stormed into the Senate, carrying what he claimed was Antony's will, stolen, he said, from the sacred archives of the Vestal Virgins. He read it aloud, every word a dagger. Antony wished to be buried, not in Rome, but in Alexandria, beside Cleopatra. A final, unforgivable betrayal. The Senate turned against him. The people whispered of treason. Octavian did not need to declare war on Antony. He declared war on Cleopatra. And long before the first sword was drawn, Antony had already lost. The Ionian Sea lay eerily still, as if the gods themselves were holding their breath. It was September 2nd, 31 BCE. Two great forces stood on the edge of history. This battle would decide the fate of Rome itself. Antony's fleet, bolstered by Egyptian reinforcements, held a formidable position at the mouth of the Ambracian Gulf. His ships, massive quinquiremes, were floating fortresses, built for power, not speed. Beside them, Cleopatra's fleet waited, carrying not just soldiers but a kingdom's fortune. For her, this was more than a battle. It was a gamble for an empire. But Octavian's admiral, Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa, had already laid the trap. For weeks he had strangled Antony's supply lines with an unrelenting naval blockade. His forces were well fed, well rested, ready. Antony's men were starving, desperate, trapped, with no path forward. Antony made a choice. He would break through Octavian's fleet, escape to Egypt, regroup, fight another day. The sun climbed higher, the sails unfurled, and then the signal was given. The sea exploded into war. Agrippa's ships moved like shadows, swift and deadly. Antony's great warships, too large, too slow, struggled to turn. Octavian's fleet struck first. Fire arrows lit up the sky, igniting sails, shattering hulls. The clash of steel, the thunder of ramming ships, the screams of drowning men. Smoke choked the sky. The water, once deep blue, turned black with ash and red with blood. Antony was no stranger to chaos. He had fought beside Caesar, triumphed in battles where others would have fled. Now he led from the front, shouting orders, rallying his men. They fought like lions, but valor was not enough. Then, at the height of battle, it happened. Cleopatra's fleet, without signal or warning, turned. Their sails caught the wind, and they fled, heading for Egypt. Antony froze. For the first time in his life, Mark Antony hesitated. His men watched in disbelief. Their commander, silent, staring at the retreating ships. And then, in one single fateful moment, he turned his ship and followed her, leaving his men behind, leaving his fate to the sea, leaderless, surrounded. Antony's fleet fell into ruin. Agrippa closed in like a vice. The great warships burned, some were sunk, others were boarded, slaughtered to the last man. By nightfall, the waters of Actium were littered with the wreckage of Antony's last hope. The sea, once calm and blue, now ran red. Antony reached Cleopatra's ship, but there were no cheers, no embrace, only silence. Because in that moment, he knew he had not just lost a battle, he had lost Rome. Behind them, Octavian watched as the sea grew quiet. He had won, but he was not finished. The war was not over. He would chase Antony and Cleopatra to the ends of the earth, if he had to, and soon he would. The sea no longer roared. The fires of Actium had burned out, leaving only the whispers of the dead and the distant sound of Octavian's war drums. Antony and Cleopatra had escaped, but they had not won. They fled to Egypt, but there was nowhere left to run. In Alexandria, Cleopatra retreated to her palace. Her mind raced. She had always been a survivor. She had outmaneuvered kings, seduced the most powerful men in Rome, ruled Egypt with an iron will wrapped in silk. But this was different. This was the endgame. Mark Antony, once Rome's greatest general, was now a broken man. His fleet was gone, his legions surrendered, his allies vanished. His name, once spoken with reverence, was now a curse in the streets of Rome. And yet, in these final days, Cleopatra did not abandon him. She could have fled. She could have betrayed him, offered Octavian her throne in exchange for mercy, but she stayed, whether out of love or defiance. She stood beside the man the world had turned against. Octavian wasted no time. He pursued them relentlessly. Because as long as Antony and Cleopatra lived, Rome was not yet his. Egypt was the last obstacle to his absolute power, and he would not leave it standing. By the summer of 30 BCE, Octavian's legions stood at the gates of Alexandria. The city, the crown jewel of the Mediterranean, now faced the full wrath of Rome. Desperate, Antony gathered what little remained of his forces. He rode out one last time. But his men knew the truth. There was no victory left to win. And so, before the battle even began, they abandoned him. The gods themselves seemed to mock him. He returned to the palace, not defeated by swords, but by fate. Then came the moment that shattered his soul. A messenger arrived, breathless, pale as death. He fell to his knees and spoke the words Antony could not bear to hear. The queen is dead. His breath caught in his throat. Cleopatra, gone? No, it couldn't be. She was his reason to fight, his reason to live. And without her, what was left? He unsheathed his sword. His men begged him to stop, but he had already made his choice. Rome had won, but it would never take him alive. With one last whisper to the gods, he turned the blade upon himself. And then, a second messenger arrived. Cleopatra was alive. The truth crashed over him like a wave. She had spread false news of her death to test her allies. And now, Antony lay dying for a lie. They brought him to Cleopatra's mausoleum, where she had locked herself away, fearing Octavian's wrath. She screamed when she saw him. Blood stained his tunic, his breath, ragged. She reached for him, held him, and in his final moments he whispered, "I die, Egypt." The woman who had conquered kings, who had bent Rome to her will, wept. She kissed his lips and felt his life slip away in her arms. Do not trust him. And then, nothing. Octavian arrived soon after. He demanded her surrender, but Cleopatra, ever the queen, refused to be paraded through Rome, a chained spectacle for his triumph. She had defied the greatest empire in history, and she would not let it claim her soul. 3 days later, she adorned herself in royal robes. She lay upon a golden couch, and she placed an asp to her breast. With one last breath, she allowed its venom to take her. When Octavian entered her chamber, he found her cold, still, yet regal, a queen, even in death. With their deaths, Egypt fell. The last great kingdom of the ancient world was swallowed by Rome, and Octavian, now Augustus, became the undisputed master of an empire, and yet, even in victory, he knew Antony and Cleopatra had become legends. Their names would echo through time, in the halls of power, in the songs of poets, in the hearts of lovers, who dared to defy the world, because some stories are too great to die.